I don't believe that he ever says a word that's true, from what I've been able to observe.
You tell people you're sorry. Well, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. There is one of two things, Mr. Prime Minister. You are either a liar or you're confused. And I'm beginning to think it's both.
Here's the hardly even look at him. He's lying. That's a big part of the issue. I don't believe that he ever says a word that's true, from what I've been able to observe. It's all stage acting. He's crafted a persona. He has a particular instrumental goal in mind, and everything is subordinated to serve that.
Why? So, what's the motivation?
The same motivation that's generally typical of people who are narcissistic, which is to be accredited with moral virtue in the absence of the work necessary to actually attain it. Why do Canadians buy this to the degree they do? And I think they're faced with a hard choice, because in my country, for 150 years, you could trust the basic institutions. You could trust the government. It didn't matter what political party was running it. You could trust the political parties, right from the socialists over to the conservatives. The socialists were mostly union types, and they were trying to give the working class a voice. And honestly so, you could trust the media. Even the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation was a reliable source of news. None of that's true now, and so Canadians are asked to make a hard choice. Trudeau has run up more debt in his short time in office than every single prime minister in Canada managed in total since the founding of the state. And the consequence of that has been an incredible asset inflation, especially in the housing market, and an unparalleled level of inflation. And you can add to that the consequences of his idiot energy policies, which have emboldened Putin, and which have also produced an unparalleled increase in energy prices across Canada. I'm speaking as a clinician here, although I've been watching Trudeau for a long time. I found it appalling because Trudeau was enticed into running for leadership as a consequence of what I would describe as a successful appeal to his overweening narcissism. He had none of the education or ability or experience necessary to do something as complex as lead a modern country. And it was obvious to all, and it should have been obvious to him, that the single reason that he was picked by the utterly cynical Liberals who chose him was, first of all, his pleasant personal appearance and his name, Trudeau, the dynastic name, the fact that he already had broad-scale marketing and sales appeal. And that was enough for him to justify to himself becoming prime minister. And then, maybe you don't want to damn someone for that, because just because he was Pierre Trudeau's son doesn't mean he doesn't have ability. And so it would be possible that someone like that could take the humble approach and decide that, well, better him than some evil conservative, let's say, and that he could carefully learn to be competent and to do a good job. But instead, he leapt into the fray immediately, appointing 50% of his cabinet as women, even though they were only 25% of the MPs, and thereby perhaps fatally impairing the qualifications and competence of the cabinet, and then doubling down on his idiot ideology, DIE, let's say, diversity, inclusivity, and equity, plus a bit of environmentalism on the side and a hatred for the energy industry. And he's been fiddling that fiddle ever since. And this theme of narcissism, which I think is apt, permeates everything that he does. The admiration for China, the dismissiveness that he manifests when he's ever asked questions, the overweening legislation like Bill C-11 that he passes without a second's consideration for the fact that maybe we could use some checks and balances in the governmental system on the off chance we might not be 100% right about all our ideological presuppositions. The fact that he basically ignores Parliament, and now that he's made it virtual, and then we could add to that as another one, Rex, which I think is very interesting, the fact that he denied unvaccinated Canadians, about 6 million of them, the right to travel, which is a big deal in a country like Canada and a big deal in other countries as well. But not only did he do that, but then when every country in the world virtually had released people from the COVID mandates and relaxed the impositions they put on the rights, he did not release Canadians from that travel ban until months after there was every bit of evidence that it should have been done. And all I can say about that was that that was sheer bloody narcissistic malevolence. There was zero excuse for that, and the mere fact that he didn't rescind that policy months ago, that in itself should have been enough for the government to fall. But I would say the worst thing thing that Trudeau did, freezing the bank accounts and interfering with the Bitcoin exchanges, because Trudeau established a precedent now that should terrify Canadians of any political engagement whatsoever, which is that if you happen to be peripherally involved with a demonstration, no matter how legal the demonstration is at the moment, and you donate money, that first of all, you'll be tracked. And that's bad enough. Like, that's terrifying enough. But not only tracked, but that all your ability to interact with the entire economic system, because it's not just freezing your bank accounts, right? It's freezing your mortgage. It's freezing your visa. It's making it impossible for you to withdraw any cash. It's putting your family at risk. It's, to compare this to what the Chinese are doing with the social credit system, is no leap. And that's a terrible conspiratorial thing to say, but it also reflects a deep underlying reality. And I can't tell you how many people have expressed shock and dismay to me throughout the United States and through Europe about the fact that Trudeau, well, implemented the Emergencies Act and suspended civil liberties and then froze the bank accounts, especially because Canada has had a great reputation on the financial front for 150 years. The integrity of our financial system, including our banks, has been one thing that Canada really got right. And now, what would you think if you were a foreign investor or anyone seriously considering doing business with Canada, when you know now that if you're a Republican, and heaven forbid a Trump supporter, but a Republican even, that your views are now deemed so extreme that it's neat and just to declare them an emergency and to steal all your money with no trial, with no due process of law, completely arbitrarily and behind the scenes. Scotiabank apologized about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if any of the other big banks did.
No, they haven't.
But they said they did it under duress. Well, that's because they're bloody cowards, and they're foolish as well, because they've taken a catastrophic hit to their international reputation.